Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. The objective of this video is to change how you view the automation of the game, so you can start making your own production lines with minimal effort. You can skip this part and just go to the timestamp where I start explaining how to use my blueprints. For those who didn't skip this part, I applaud your enthusiasm. I'll try my best so that you won't need factory guides anymore in the future. First, if you didn't know yet, there is an item files section in the database menu. Inside, you can see that there is a list of AIC products and usable items. You can easily find what you need to produce there and pin its formula. For this guide, we'll use the HC Valley battery formula. To quickly understand what is needed, you simply divide the amount of materials needed by the time required to produce an item. For example, it shows that you need 10 steel parts that will take 10 seconds to produce 1 HC battery. 10 divided by 10 is 1. Now multiply that by 2 because the belt speed is capped at bringing materials every 2 seconds. You can even check in-game where you will see that the arrows on the belt represent where an item is put. The majority of simple formulas also caps at producing an item every 2 seconds, which makes sense. 1 multiplied by 2 is equal to 2. This means you will need 2 belts bringing in steel parts into the packaging unit. Now let's do that with the dense originium powder. 15 divided by 10 is equal to 1.5. 1.5 multiplied by 2 is equal to 3. This means you will need 3 belts bringing in dense originium powders into the packaging unit. The next step is to go into a blank area. First, let's put a packaging unit as required by the formula. If we click on the steel part, we can see that it is produced by a fitting unit. Remember that we need 2 belts to bring in steel parts? That automatically means we will need 2 fitting units. Then we can check what is needed to produce the material needed by the fitting units. It shows that it is made by refining units. We can then check what is needed to produce the material needed by the refining units. It shows that it is made by grinding units. The formula shown in the grinding unit requires a sand leaf powder, but we can ignore that for now. Let's focus on the fact that it needs 2 ferrium powder for each grinding unit. It shows in the formula that a ferrium powder is produced by a shredding unit. Therefore, we put 2 shredding units for each grinding unit. Finally, let's check what is needed to produce the material needed by the shredding unit. It shows that it needs a refining unit, so we put a refining unit for each shredding unit. By doing this, you now have a full visual representation of a production line for steel parts. Let's quickly do the same for the dense originiums. Now, you can clearly see that the production line starts with 4 refining units for steel parts and 6 shredding units for dense originiums. We can go ahead and line everything up on the depot bus. Make sure that you create some space for electric pylons. Let's stop with the grinding units first. Remember that each grinding unit requires a sand leaf powder based on the formula? This is where things can get a bit tricky. If we check the formula again and see what produces sand leaf powder, it shows that it is made by a shredding unit. Most importantly, it shows that a single sand leaf can be shredded into 3 sand leaf powders. Technically, that means 2 shredding units will produce 6 sand leaf powders, which is enough to provide for all the grinding units. What a beginner usually does is to squeeze in a depot bus that unloads sand leaves somewhere so it could be shredded and provide sand leaf powders to all the grinding units. However, I will take this chance to teach you to stop falling into that noob trap. The easiest way to solve this problem is to adjust the positioning of your grinding units so that you can create a path for sand leaf powder belts. First, we need to position the shredding unit that shreds the sand leaves. Next is to move the grinding units to create space. It is better to teach you this through visuals. Now you can see that each grinding unit will have a source of sand leaf powder. On a side note, there is definitely a much more efficient setup than this. I'm just trying to simplify as much as possible so you adapt this thought process and be able to optimize by yourself later on. To prevent yourself from getting confused, we can connect the belts for the current setup. Now let's create a simple planting unit loop for each sand leaf shredding unit. You can clearly see that there is a good amount of space in the middle. This is where you can put the remaining facilities. It shouldn't be hard to figure out this part on your own. Let's set up the ore unloaders and get the sand leaves ready to see if the whole thing works. If the packaging unit never sleeps, it means that it is running at maximum efficiency. And there you have it, a simple and yet effective way to create a massive production line. No need to waste depot bus slots to unload sand leaves. This could be further optimized by decreasing the total height. The width is fixed at 30 since it already uses the minimum amount of depot unloaders. The endgame setup is to have 3 production lines for HC batteries, 3 production lines for buck capsule A's, and 2 production lines for buck capsule C's or canned citrome C's. First, move your main AIC into the lower left corner of the area. Use my code to get the blueprint for HC battery. All codes can be found in the pinned comment. Use it to set up 2 production lines on the right side of the area. The third one goes into the top left corner. Make sure all the seed picking units are provided with sand leaves. If you don't want to encounter any issues, make sure to put 50 sand leaves each. Getting enough area expansion and bus depot upgrades to set 2 production lines on the right side is cheap, but getting the upgrades necessary for the 3rd production line is expensive. Next, use my code to get the blueprint for canned citrome C. Create a production line right beside the 3rd HC battery line. Now move the whole setup except for the unloaders to your main AIC. Just follow what I did in the background. Then set the production line again beside the 3rd HC battery line. Make sure all seed picking units are provided with citromes. That's 3 HC batteries and 2 canned citrome C's. All that's left is 3 buck capsule A's that will be put into your subpacks. First and foremost, you need an almost maxed subpacks for this. Basically, maxed area expansion with 2 out of 3 bus depot upgrades. The subpack at the Reconstruction HQ can be very expensive to upgrade, so it could take time before you can put a production line there. Use my code to get the blueprint for buck capsule A. Move the subpack to the lower right corner of the area. Set up the production line. Insert buck flowers into both seed picking units on the right side. Insert sand leaves into both seed picking units on the bottom side. Adjust the position of the subpack based on what I did in the background. Set the subpack's unloaders on the top left and middle left to unload buck flowers. Repeat everything on the other subpacks. I optimized my blueprints in a way that you will have some small free area to put whatever production line you want to add, whether it is on the main AIC area or the subpacks. Make sure to double-check your yields through the AIC report menu. Canned citromes should be at 24 per minute, while both buck capsules and HC batteries should be at 18 per minute. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one.